Welcome back. We're going to be continuing Unit 2 by talking about evaluating today. This is where we're going to be plugging numbers in for variables and then simplifying our expressions down to one number. So go ahead and grab your calculator and let's get started right now. So welcome back. Here we're going to be talking about evaluating expressions. So let's get right into it with example A. So here we are with example A, and it says evaluate the expression if x is equal to 6 and y is equal to -4. So I've got an expression here and I've got a whole bunch of variables in it, no constants, only variables here. And I'm going to be substituting in the numbers that I have, 6 and -4. When I substitute in, I want to make sure that I use parentheses to do so. Every time that I put in a number, I want to put the parentheses around it. That way I'm separating it from any signs that might need to be nearby or other numbers that may be nearby, because that would represent multiplication. So let's go ahead and take a look at me doing that right now. So I'm going to be plugging in 6 and -4 anytime I see an x and a y. So notice I put parentheses around the 6 and around the -4. Even if they were inside parentheses, I still went and put parentheses around each number because I want to make sure that I have parentheses around everything so I can separate it out and understand what's going on here. Now, once I've plugged in my numbers, or once I've substituted, if you don't want to hear the plug-in term and you want to use substitute, the correct mathematical term here, now you're going to be following the order of operations that we just talked about. So again, I'm going to be selecting the thing that I'm going to be doing next. I'm going to underline that part so I know which part I'm doing, and then I'm going to be bringing everything else down. So in this case, I'm going to be remembering gems, and I'm going to be starting with my grouping symbols. So inside my grouping symbols, it looks like I have 6 plus -4. I can use my calculator for that if I don't remember my integer rules, but luckily I do, and 6 plus -4 is going to give me +2. I'm going to bring everything else down after I do that. Bring down my parentheses, bring down my 2, bring that raised to the second power, bring down my plus sign, bring down my 6, inside parentheses, my -4, inside parentheses, minus, and inside parentheses, -4. All right, now let's see what I'm going to do next. I have no more grouping symbols. Although I have a whole bunch of numbers in parentheses, I don't actually have any operations happening within those parentheses. So I can't say I've got any more grouping symbols to do. So I have to take a look and see which thing I'm going to be doing next. So in this case, I'm going to be doing exponents. So that 2 squared is going to be 4. So I'm going to write down my 4, bring down my plus sign, bring down my 6 in parentheses, bring down my -4 in parentheses, -4, bring down my -4 again in parentheses. So now I've got no more exponents, so I'm going to be moving on to multiplication and division. Doesn't look like I have any multiplication and division here. Well, wait, I do have some multiplication, but no division, because I have 6 next to -4 with no symbol in between, so I know that means multiplication. So I'm going to go ahead and underline that and bring down everything else I'm not doing. 6 times -4 is -24. I'm going to put that inside parentheses still because I want to keep it separated from the plus sign in front, minus -4. Now I have everything as a plus or a minus. And again, if I have everything on the same line as a plus and a minus, I can just type that straight in my calculator and it will work. I'm going to go one step at a time so I don't get confused, but you could type this straight in your calculator, 4 plus -24 minus -4, and as long as you type that in correctly, it will come out correctly. So 4 plus -24, when I do that, I'm going to end up with -20 and bring down my minus -4. Now again, you can use your calculator for this, but luckily I remember my integer rules and I know that this minus and minus are going to give me a plus, so I'm going to end up with -20 plus 4, and -20 plus 4 is going to give me -16. And again, I'm going to circle my answer on my paper so that my teacher can easily locate it when I'm doing a test or a quiz or even a classwork. And let's go ahead and try a practice problem on your own. Here we are at practice problem number 1. You're going to try this problem on your own, so you want to go ahead and pause the video, do the problem on your own. Remember, show all of your steps in the order of operations. It's not a really good idea to skip steps because you might miss things, you might get confused, you might get lost on where you are, so you want to make sure that you're writing all of your steps out. Then you're going to press play again to see if you are right. How did you do? Were you able to get the answer that I got? Hopefully you did. If not, go ahead and look through my work, figure out where you made your mistake, and let's go on to the next example. So here we are at example B, and I've got 3, and I've got numbers in there, constants that are not just my variable this time. So I'm going to be plugging in my variable, but I want to be careful to put parentheses around it so that I keep those numbers and things that operations that are there not mixed up with the numbers that I substitute in. So let's go ahead and do that now. All right, I've got my parentheses around my 3.2, my parentheses around my 3.2, and now again, I'm going to be applying the order of operations to complete the problem. And I'm going to make sure that I underline my steps as I go along so I don't get confused. So let's get started here with my grouping symbols. I've got 2 sets of grouping symbols. However, the 3.2 on the right-hand side is in the grouping symbols, but there's nothing to do there. So that's not where I'm going to be starting. I'm going to be starting with my grouping symbol with the 5 minus 3.2. Luckily, I've got my calculator because I don't want to have to deal with decimals on my own. 5 minus 3.2. It's going to give me 1.8. So I'm going to write down my 3, bring down my parentheses, write down the 1.8 that I just found. Again, parentheses, plus 4. 3.2 inside that parentheses to the second power. So again, I've got grouping symbols, but there's nothing to do inside those grouping symbols. It's just a number being held there by itself. So I'm going to be going with my exponents in this case. In this case, I've got 3.2 squared. So again, I'm going to be using my calculator, 3.2 times 3.2, or 3.2 with the squared button, and I end up with 10.24. So I'm going to write down everything else that I have been going along doing. So 3 times 1.8 plus 4 inside the parentheses, 10.24. All right, so now I've got 2 multiplication problems at this step. So again, you can do this one at a time. You can do 3 times 1.8 and then 4 times 10.24 on 2 separate lines. Since I know that I'm going to be doing multiplication and they are at the same level in the order of operations, I'm going to do them both at the same time. Now, this is risky if you're not really great with your order of operations. If you are, feel free to do both. If not, do one at a time, write everything else down, then do the next one. So 3 times 1.8 in this case, again, using your calculator to do so, you're going to end up with 5.4. So you want to put down your 5.4, bring down your plus sign. Don't forget that in the middle. Very, very bad if you forget that. 4 times 10.24 is going to give you 40.96. And then you're just left with a simple addition problem. You can just add those 2 together. And when you do that, you get 46.36. And this brings us to the end of this problem because it's simplified. We only have one number there. Make sure you circle it so your teacher can easily find it on your test, quiz, or classwork. And let's go ahead and let you try another practice problem. So here we are at practice problem number 2. It says evaluating the expression if a is equal to 1.4. So we're going to try this one on your own. I want you to pause the video now, try the problem by yourself, then press play again to see if you are right. How did you do? Were you able to get the answer correct? If not, go ahead and take a look back through my work to see where you may have made your error. And let's go ahead and move on to the next one once you've got your answer correct. So here we are at example C, and it says evaluate the expression if k equals 3/4. And as we can see, we've got everybody's favorite thing in math, fractions. So let's start by plugging everything in, and then let's see where we can go from there. So I substituted in my 3/4, and I've got that being raised to the 3rd power. Now, I've got a fraction being raised to a power. This is something that is totally new to us, and it's very important for us because we're going to be using it a lot going forward. So we want to make sure that we know what we're doing here. So I don't have any grouping symbols, so I'm going to be starting with that exponent. And when I've got a fraction raised to an exponent, I'm going to be raising both the numerator and the denominator to that power. That's the most important thing to remember. When you have a fraction with an exponent, you're going to be raising both the top and the bottom to that exponent. So I'm going to be bringing down my 8/9 because I'm not doing anything with that. And then inside parentheses, 3 to the 3rd power is 27. 4 to the 3rd power is 64. So I'm going to make sure I have that written down. And now I'm going to be multiplying fractions. Now there are 2 ways to multiply fractions, of course. You can multiply straight across, 8 times 27, 9 times 64, and reduce. That will work. However, I'm going to do some cross-reducing beforehand to make it a little bit easier on myself at the end. You don't have to do this. You can multiply straight across and then reduce. That works too. But I'm going to do some cross-reduction first. So 8 goes into 8 one time. 8 goes into 64 8 times. 9 goes into 9 one time. 9 goes into 27 3 times. And then I can just multiply straight across. 1 times 3 is 3. 1 times 8 is 8. And I end up with 3/8. And that is in simplest form. Now again, if you multiplied straight across, you would get some really large numbers, and you would have to do some reduction because we're always going to show our answer in simplest form. But if you do some cross reduction ahead of time, it can help you. But the key thing to take away in this example is that when you have a fraction raised to a power, you're going to raise both the top and the bottom, or both the numerator and the denominator, to that power. Let's try a practice problem with this on your own. So here we are at practice problem number 3, evaluating an expression if k is equal to 6/5. So I want you to try this one on your own. You're going to pause the video now, do the best you can with it. Remember, you're going to be plugging in a fraction and raising to a power. We're going to raise both the top and the bottom to that power. So do the problem that you can, the best of your ability, then press play again to see if you are right. How did you do? Were you able to get the problem correct? Now, I realize you got really large numbers once you raised 6 and 5 to the power. So hopefully you were able to do some cross reduction. You may not have been able to do all the cross reduction that I did. I went 5 into 125 and 24 into 216. But hopefully you were able to do some cross reduction and then get your answer in simplest form, because remember, we always want our answer in simplest form. And let's go ahead and take a look at our last example. Here we are at example D, and it says the temperature outside is 30 degrees Celsius. Use the formula to determine the temperature in degrees Fahrenheit. Let F represent the degrees Fahrenheit. So we're going to be taking our degrees Celsius there and turning it into Fahrenheit. Luckily, they have a formula for that to happen. It says Fahrenheit is equal to 9/5 times Celsius plus 32. So let's start by substituting in our Celsius. We're going to be plugging it into C. That's what Celsius stands for. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. So we've got 5/9 times 30 plus 32, so that's not going to be correct because we're going to be multiplying by 9/5. So let's go ahead and fix that in our formula first. There we go. All right, now the easy way to multiply by a fraction and a whole number in our calculator is to put the fraction in our calculator first. We're going to just do 9 divided by 5, just like we were back in Unit 1 to turn a fraction into a decimal. When we do that, we're going to get 1.8. Then we're going to just multiply 1.8 times 30 in our calculator. We can do this all in our calculator. We don't need to do it here, writing it all out, but we can if we'd like. I'm going to write it out just so we can see it happen. 1.8 times 30 plus 32. You don't have to write that all out. You can just do 9 divided by 5 times 30 in your calculator. And when you do that, I think that you'll find that you get 54. So we're going to have F is equal to 54. Plus 32. So then it's just simple addition from there. We're going to add 54 and 32. And when we do that, we end up with 86 degrees. Remember, we have a word problem, so we need a word answer. And in this case, we're talking about degrees. So our word answer is 86 degrees. You could write the word degrees. I put the degree symbol, but you can do either one. Both are correct, but you have to give some sort of indication that you have a word answer to this word problem. That brings us to the end of this video. So if you like this video, go ahead and throw us a thumbs up. If you love this video, go ahead and throw us a sub, and we will catch you in the next one.